right, so folks, we're sort of picking up from where we left off, but I have made a modification. So let's look up to where we left off. So last Wednesday when we were together, we uploaded user form w18.xlsm. I made a small modification to that file to make it more parallel with the project that you're going to have to do on this. So the main example we do today is what students have typically struggled with most on the user forms project. So you'll definitely want to start by downloading this file. I believe that we're going to have time to get to this file as well, so you might as well download that one, but don't worry about extracting it now. Let's get it downloaded, and if we get to it, we'll extract it together. So let's go ahead and get the user forms file open. And while you're getting that open, and it takes a minute, I'm going to just go through kind of a quick review of where we left off. So remember, we created a user form, and we put several controls. Remember, the control is this visual object. It's the name for these visual objects that show here on the page. You've got option buttons, or I'm sorry, command buttons. We do have some option buttons here. They're inside a frame. Remember, the frame is what allows us to group those option buttons into a group. So I have two sets of option buttons. As long as they're inside separate frames, they'll behave as separate units. We have a combo box, which allows us to drop down a choice and pick from a list. A text box, a free-form entry, and then a label, which is readable, read-only text. And so I think we put a hotkey on this, Control-Shift-E. Yeah, if you're in Excel, press Control-Shift-E, it will open up that form. We can see the information. It reads, it decides which information to show based on where the active cell is. And there's the brass banded acrylic timber mallard green. Okay, so what our next task is now is to look over here we have a promo column. So the idea is we want to be able to put a promotion onto some of these products. In fact, we want to be able to put more than one promotion. So let's go to the promos, and you'll see kind of a funny typo that I put in here. Full price should actually be half price. What kind of promotion is full price? That's not a very good promotion. Or get a special deal I have for you. Full price. Actually, it reminds me of some game, Payday. When I was a kid, like in the 70s, there was a game called Payday. And it was something like, it was supposed to teach kids how to manage money. And it was supposed to be fun. Everyone would have fun. But there was one card that you would get that would say, the 25% off sale referred to the height of the fence, not the price of the fence. So you'll be receiving a 6-foot fence for the price of an 8-foot fence. That was a bad deal for you, sorry. Almost as good as a promotion that is full price. Okay, so we're changing that promotion to half price. So here's what we're going to do. So right now, none of these products have any promotion on. And what we'd like to do is make it so that if this data here says 1,3, then what that means is there's two promotions on this. It is half price and it's a free warranty. What's that? Pretty good deal. Time to buy it. Or we could even do this: 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna every discount, every promotion we've got. Please buy this thing. Half price, free shipping, free warranty, and buy one get one free. Give you 2. But wait. If you order now, you'll get 2. Okay. And if there's nothing, if there's just one number here, there's a 3, and that's the only promotion. And then if it's blank, then there's no promotion. That's the idea. But of course, we don't want the user to have to do this numeric mapping for us. And so when we brought up there, we're going to give them something to choose from. And so we're going to use a new. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's get 1 and 3 selected here in cell number 1. And that's the one that we're going to work with to start to get this going. Actually, let's start with 3. So we've got this one I got here. This has a 3. And any single number would do the trick as long as it's between 1 and 4. All right. So this is now a new kind of control. This control that we put here to list our manufacturers is called a combo box. It's called a combo box because it's a combination of a text box, which we have here, and a list box, which we haven't seen yet, but that's what we're showing now. So the list box is this tool right here. It's the fourth tool. It may look a little different on your version of Excel than it does on mine. I'm just going to click and drag to bring that box in here a little bit big. The idea behind a list box is that it is multiple items that you can see all at the same time, and then you can pick one. or more, which is what we're going to see here today. Maybe I'll go ahead and put a label above that to show promotions. So I'll come in here and put a label. Oops, that's text box. Put a label. And I'm going to leave this one named label 1. I don't plan on referring to the label through code, but I will change the caption property to read promotions. Good. I will want to change the name of this list box. So I'm going to call the list box LST for list and then promo. LST promo. All right. So the idea is that we have to get the values into this list box that we want to be able to read. It's very, very similar to what we did when we filled in the values for the list in our combo box. Let's take a look at that code, we'll review that code, and then we may even copy it because it'll be very close to what we need to fill up our list of promotions. So as we're initializing our show data, we're clicking the department. Here we go. We're listing the manufacturers. We have a loop right here. We set R equal to 2, and then we do a loop that counts R and goes down through the department page looking in column E. And it just takes the value from row number 2, column E, and adds that item into the combo box. So in this case, we're going to start in row 1 because we don't have a header on the promotions data. And we are then going to pull the values out of column B instead of column E. But it's really pretty similar. So I'm going to copy all of this from the R equals 2 down to the loop. And I will put it at the very end of my show data procedure. Put a comment in here. This is going to be list the promotions. And paste. Now, our manufacturers is on the debit worksheet. Holy cow, debit, what do you mean? I thought it was called the departments. Remember, it's called departments here. That's the name that's on this sheet. But what we did when we were initializing the form, we bound 3 object variables onto our 3 worksheets. Because these are module level variables, defined way up here, I can attach those in the initialize procedure, and they will persist throughout the rest of these subforms. So when I say debit here, it is an object variable that was bound when the form opened. What should it be instead of debit? Promos. Or promo, I think. It's just singular. Yeah, promo. And instead of column E, it'll be column B. I'll make that in the 2 places that I have to make that change. And again, because there's no header on this data, we'll start at row number 1 instead of row number 2. Would this code execute this way? I still have another important change to make. Would this code execute? Yeah, what would it do?
Set the combo box.
Yeah, it's going to list our promos in the bottom of the list. We will list all the manufacturers here, and then we're going to put the promotions in the same combo box after the list of manufacturers. Because right now we're still writing this to CBO MFR. What does that need to be? LST promo. So now we're going to loop across a set of cells. We're going to know that it's time to stop because we bumped into a blank cell. We're adding items into our list box, and we're reading them off of column B. That should be pretty good. Let's go ahead and run this, and we should see the list of our promotions now showing up in that list box. Okay, questions? Question here?
Yeah, I've got an error that says it's expecting a function or variable under the list of manufacturers loop, and I don't know why. I didn't change it.
under the list manufacturer. You got an error in here.
So yeah, under the CBO MFR.add item, the dot add item equals there's an equals.
Yeah, if you had an equal sign here, that would be a problem.
Oh, it's dots.
And if you're starting from where you ended last week, it's probably going to be healthier for you to download the file that looks as if it's the one I uploaded right after class, but I actually changed it since then. They have a little bit different structure on how we're handling the promotions. Other questions? Yes?
That should list all of the promotions, right? All 4 of them,
You
right?
should list all 4 promotions.
It's only giving me 3.
If you're only getting 3, it's probably because you're starting on row 2. Because we had to modify this to
I forgot that.
be row 2, start at row 1 instead of row 2. Okay. Now, when we did this with the manufacturer, when we got to this point, we listed all the manufacturers, but now what we needed to do was to select one of those manufacturers and saying that's the one that's there. In the combo box, we did it just by setting the value equal to something. And if our combo box, if our list box is only going to hold one value, if it's only going to be selecting one value, then we could do it that way as well. But our intention here is to have multiple items be able to be selected. And so, let's start off to see a little bit different structure to be able to select multiple items in the list box. So after list promotions, let's just go ahead and see what it takes to be able to select an item in this architecture. So I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to run to right here, and then we'll come into break mode. So I've put a breakpoint here. We'll take us into break mode before we actually even see the form loaded. But I want to be where I can kind of take a little peek at some of the things that are happening in memory. Okay, so we've just loaded up the list promotions, and I am in break mode. So that means this is sitting in memory right now. So I should be able to look at some of the properties of that list box. So lst promo dot. There's a few properties that will be interesting. One is called the list count. List count will tell us how many items there are in the list. That's pretty good. It's got a property that tells us how many there are. There's also one called list. List is actually the items in the list. This is an array property. It's an array. So if I just try to print this, it's going to go, what do you mean? You can't print the array. So what do I have to do if I want to print something from this list?
The values.
Not the values, what do I have to put here? An index, yeah. So index number 0 should be the first one that's in there. Number 1 should be the next one, and so forth. So 4 items numbered 0 through 3. So I have an array there. There's another array. It's the same size. And this is the magical one. It is called selected. So I can look at that and say, I'm saying print the number 1 position out of the selected array from the list promo list box. It's a Boolean array. It's true or false. What's it going to be? What do you think? False. It should be false. It's not selected yet. And if we change that one to true, I'll go ahead and finish running this now, and it should display the form. And that number 1 item will be selected. So we have this array that has a slot in it for every single one of the elements in the list. It's a Boolean array, true or false. We set it to true, and it should toggle that value on. Okay, so let me run that again. But let's bring that line into the code. In fact, let's just go ahead and I'm going to select them all. 0, 1, 2, 3. Set them all to true. I'm going to run it. Here's my breakpoint. I'll run it. And I only have one of them set to true. So frustrating. Didn't I get the indices right? Yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3. Here's the reason. Go ahead.
I was going to say the reason for that is because the very last one is the one that ends up being selected, so it just changes.
That's right. By default, this list box, when you select an item, it unselects anything else that was selected before. It's acting like a set of radio buttons. And that's a reasonable thing. And that's saying, I only want you to choose one. Aha, but there's a property we can change. So let me come back to my form, select my list box, and then look at the properties. There's a property down here called MultiSelect. When MultiSelect is set to 0, it's not MultiSelect. There's 0 MultiSelect. When the MultiSelect level is set to 1, it's just called Select Multi. In this case, I toggle each choice on and off. Click on, click off. I can click 2 of them on, click 3 of them on, whatever. If I go to the next level, which is extended, then it behaves the way you're used to having lists behave in Windows, where you can click one, hold the Shift key down, scroll down, click the next one, and it selects everything between. You have those kind of 3 choices. Select just one at a time, toggle each one off and on individually, or this extended where you can hold Control or Shift and get different features. So you can pick how you want to do that, either 2 or 3 on this. And now, once I've set that to multi, when I select the second item, it won't unselect the first one. And so now I should be able to run this, and they should all come up selected. So we've got to set that multi-select property. Otherwise, even though we've got the array there, by setting 1, it will unset the others. Okay, so now the difficult part. And that is to actually figure out, by looking at our data, which one of these we should actually choose. Now, typically, folks, I like to declare all my variables up at the top of the user form, or up at the top of the procedure. I'm going to declare a variable here because I want you to be able to see it. Well, 2 things. I want you to realize it's okay to declare them down lower. It works okay as long as you don't try to refer to them before they're declared in the code. But then it also is going to localize this because this is going to be a little bit different for us. So here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to make sure that I'm on row number 2, which has just the 1 and the 3. I've got just 2 separated by a comma. And then what I'd like to do is be able to figure out how to check the number 1 and number 3 values in this task. So let's declare a variable. I'm going to declare a variable called data as variant. I think this is the first time I've actually used the variant data type in class. I've used almost all the other ones, but we haven't used variant. Remember, variant is the switch hitter. It will behave kind of the way we treat it, and it can do some neat things. And here's the first thing that we're going to do with it. Data equals, now, I've got over there in column, we're on the product sheet, and it's in column H. So I'm going to set data equal to products, whatever row number we're on, product number, column number H. Now, if I did that, it would read that string in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and just plop that right into my data variable and go, oh, I'm a string. Data, the variant type, and go, okay, I'm a string. I'm good with that. But I'm going to do an extra step on the way. I am going to split. I'm going to call the split function. It says, look at this string and chop it up into a bunch of little strings and return an array of strings. And I got to tell it how to chop it up based on a comma. That's the second argument. So the first argument, what's the string you want to cut up into little pieces? And this comma separates the argument, and then my next argument is a string comma that says the comma is how you know where to split. Let me go ahead and run right to that point. So now, if I look at data, if I just try to print data, it'll say, data is an array. You can't print the array. A lot of environments would go, oh, you want to print an array? It would like print it out for you. It would go number 1, number 2, number 3, the values. But VBA doesn't. So instead, but I can look in here. I can say, all right, well, let's look at the number 1 position. And what I've got there is a 3. Does that make sense? Yeah. Number 0 is 1. Number 1 is 3. So if I look at number 0, I should see the 1. What happens if I try to look at number 2? Select your type of range. There is no select 2. It made an array with 1 column, 2 rows. One-dimensional array of degree 2. So now we've got to look across this array. We've got to scan that whole array and figure out which of these items we should be selecting. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this and come back to my code. Now, we've got a variable that we can repurpose for this. It's already called R. We're done using it in this loop right here. So after I split that string into an array and read it into the data variable, I'll now do this. For R equals 0 to the upper boundary of that array. Next, put do events in there just for kicks. So now I should have access to each individual item in there. Let me go ahead and read that into another variable. Declare another variable here called, I'll just call it item as a string. I'll say item equals data sub x. So now I've just got a little string variable holding this one element. First time through, when data is 0, it'll be a 1. When data is 1, it'll be a 3. I'm holding that value.
Should be data R?
Oh yeah, sorry, we're using R as the control variable. Thank you. So now I'm going to use item here just to set that value in my in the list box. So we've got copy one of these items from down here. LST promo selected sub item. We'll put item here equals true. So now when item is 1, we're going to be selecting number 1. When item is 3, we'll be selecting number 3. And then we don't need these other ones. So we've looked at the data that was a comma-separated variable text. We split it out into an array. We're iterating across that array. And we're using that information to set the variable. Let's see how we're doing so far. So I've got 1 in 3. 1 in 3 should be what? 1 in 3 should be half price shipping, free warranty. All right, let's see how we're doing. Wait a minute, is selected white or selected blue? Selected is blue.
Selected is blue.
What's going on?
The array starts at 0.
Ah! Right, our array starts counting at 0, but these are indexed beginning at 1. So when we write, so when we've got a 1 in item, what spot in the array do we have to write it to? 0. So what do we do here? Just -1. And that then should get our indices offset so that they're actually displaying the right values. So now 1 in 3 produces for us half price shipping and free. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
So when you use the split function, doesn't it return an array that starts at 0?
This returns an array that begins at 0, which
So
is
then
why,
why does-
when we're looking at data, we're going from 0 to the upper boundary of the data.
But then why do we have to subtract 1 off it for list promo if it's also using an array that starts at 0?
So why do we have to select? Yeah, this one's using array at 0. Aha, good question. So when we split 1 and 3, it's going to have, we're holding a 1, we're holding a 3. When we see 1 here,
Oh, I see.
we need to select the number 0 item here. This array is 0 index, but it's holding a net index that's offset by 1. Question here?
Can you explain the split function again?
Yeah, let's take a look at the split function. So I'll just use it here in some text. So let me print split of, and then let me put something in here. Why don't we say to Nephi, sphere of Olden. So I've got a string there, and I'm now going to split this based on a space. So now everywhere I have a space, that should return, that should now return an array that has 2 as one element, Nephi, comma, as another element, Seer as another element, and so forth. So because this has an array, I can't just print it. It's an array. It's going to say, hey, no good. But I can tell it I want to see the number 0 position. That should be what? 2. That should be 2. I want to look at the number 1 position, Nephi, comma. I want to look for the upper boundary. Well, I'm going to ask the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So look at number 5 position. There's time. If I change this, now don't split it on a space, but split it on a comma, and I look at position number 0, I get everything up to the comma. It's now using the comma to decide what should be split. If I look at number 1, this will be interesting. If I look at number 1, what's the first character of the number 1 slot?
Space.
It's a space, yeah. So that space goes, the comma goes away because that was the delimiter. But if I've got a space in there, that space still comes back. Did that get, you understand the split function? Question here?
Split a string?
What's that?
Can you only use the split on a variable, or can you do it on a string?
Oh, yeah. This is any string expression here.
Okay.
In fact, you can probably do it on a number, too. If I had a number here, and I told it I want to split that on 2s, I think it would convert that into a string and then go, oh, 2 is what you want to split it on. That should give me a 1, a 3, 4, and a 3 as my elements. So it doesn't have to be a string. It takes a string, but if you put something besides a string, it'll try to convert it into a string and then split it. But yeah, you can definitely you can put anything there that returns a string. Okay, so just to drive that point home, input box. Here's a function. Enter a string. Or whatever that says. Split on the space. I run this, it's got to say, okay, we need a string. Hello. I hope you are doing well. Okay, now, I don't even know what I was splitting it on anymore. Was it splitting on space?
Yeah.
So, hello, I, yes. So it picked up the number 1 slot, which was I. Kind of anticlimactic to have an I there. But so yeah, anything that evaluates to a string can go. So now, but we've noticed what happens if we've got spaces. Space comes back. I wonder, what do you think? Do you think we can convert? Do you think this is numeric? I've got a string there. It's a number 5. That should be numeric, yes? How about a space 5? Yeah, I can figure out space 5 too. I was kind of expecting that to go the other way. So the next thing I was going to say, we can skip. Let's move on. Okay. But we do have another problem, and that is that people are going to make mistakes here. So let's suppose that someone puts in here, instead of a 3, they put in a B. Is that going to be a problem for us? That's going to be a problem because we're going to say, look in the selected array at number 1 minus 1 and make that true. Look at 2 minus 1, make that true. Look at B minus 1. What's it going to do? We don't know what B minus 1 is. B minus 1, never heard of it. So, here's what we should do. And in fact, that is the very reason why we made this a string. So that the split, so that when we did this, it wouldn't fail. If there's a B there, it'll take the B into that character, and now we can look at it and decide, is this something we should try to set? Let's just make sure that it does fail. Yeah, it does fail. Type mismatch. Good. So now, before we do this setting the value to true, we'll put an if statement. If is numeric. Item. Then we will. So that should handle it. That should just now ignore anything that's not numeric. We got to be. We don't know what you meant by that, but we're not selecting anything. What's the other problem? What other problems do we have even if it is numeric? Yeah, if they put something out of bounds, we're assuming it's going to go there into bounds. So why don't we go ahead and inside this if, let's put in another condition. If, now we know it's a number, if item is greater than 0 and item is less than, you gotta think where it has to go. We're going to subtract 1 off of it. I think it just needs to be less than. List count. It took me a while to think of it. LST promo.list count. Then yeah, I think the easiest way for me to do this is just put some data in there and check to see what it does. So let's see. So in our case, list count will be 5. And so if it's 5,
Then you're putting 5 less.
but we're trying to write to the number 3 position in the array. I don't know. Let's run it too. So let me get rid of the B. We'll deal with the B later. This one should be fully specified. And let's run it. Control Shift E is the hotkey, by the way, that runs it. Okay, yeah, so we are off by 1. So we need to allow it to be equal to that last value. So it's less than or equal to that one. We're in good shape. So let me run that again. And now we've got all of them selected. Oh, but I still. Well, I want to extend. I thought I was on.
Once you've selected one, one's always going to be selected, right? You can't unselect them.
Oh, that's a really good thing. What if you want to unselect? Do we need to unselect here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to unselect. As soon as you put a promotion, you can't take the promotion off. Maybe that's why we had full price in there originally. So you could go to full price. That's kind of a cheap way to get back to no promotion. Put a promotion that really needs no promotion. Yeah, what are we going to do? What should you do to be able to handle that? Let's actually finish off this part of the example, then we'll talk about that. Okay, so we've got. There's one more thing we have to worry about here. Maybe it was the space. Yeah, that space is handled by itself, so we should be okay. I'm trying to think of what a good way is to be able to unselect all of them.
What if you put in a period instead of a comma between two numbers? You could end up with a number that fits the range.
Oh yeah, that was the one. Let's do that. So the question is, what happens if we have in here 4.9?
3.4 instead of 3 comma.
Yeah, this is going to have the same problem. Well, that one wouldn't be a problem. 3.4 wouldn't be a problem because it would get 3.4, and it would convert that into a 3. Right? Because it has to be an integer value. There is nothing in the middle of that. And so it's...
Yeah, but then you wouldn't get the 4.
Yeah. It's a problem, but it's not an error. It's a logic error, it's not a syntax, or it's not a runtime error. Let's just take a look at this. The question is, what if I say, I want to print 3.4? It'll print 3.4, no problem. But let me convert that to an integer. So I'm going to expressly call the function that they use to convert, to do inline conversions. And that gets converted to a 3. So it would take the 3.4 and go, oh, yeah, I know what that is. It's got to be an integer, so we'll make it into a 3. But the problem is going to be if we have a 4.5. Because 4.5 is going to... 4.9. 4.9 is going to round up. 4.5 rounds down? You're kidding me. 4.9 will round up. I don't know where you have to, I don't know how high you have to go. We'll round up. Apparently 4.5 rounds down. So if we actually have a 4.9 there, that's going to be a problem. Because that will end up being 5. I think this will be a problem. Yeah. 4, Control Shift E. And so, yeah, so we missed this one. It's not an error. I guess it's not such a bad thing. There is no 4.9. Or we can say, you know what, if it's 4.9, just make it into a 4. And the way we do that is not with cint, but just int. That will give you the integer portion of that number. So instead of letting it guess at how I want the conversion to happen, right here where we write to it, I'm going to force this to be the integer portion of whatever that is. So I added this int function around that. That'll take that 4.9. When it sees that 4.9, it'll convert it down into a 4, and it will write this. Not really a huge problem, just when 4.9 doesn't get selected, now it treats 4.9 like a 4. Let's hold off on clearing this thing until we see that we have time at the end of class. We can put a button on it that just scans through and clears everything. That's not all that is interesting. You guys know what interesting stuff to do. Importantly, we got to figure out how to save this back to the worksheet. The user is going to maybe open one that has no promotions, put a couple promotions on it. We got to save that back out. So let's get down to business now. So under Save Data, let's go ahead and do this one. So it looks like we don't have a control variable yet. So what are we going to have to do in this case? We've got an array, a Boolean array. Some of them are true, some of them are false. We've got to convert that into a comma-delimited numeric string. Any thoughts? Go ahead.
I'm going to say if this list item is selected, comma, add to my array that number with a comma as a string into my string array.
Beautiful. We're not going to use an array. We'll just use it as a string. We'll keep building onto the same string. But yeah, that's the trick. So let me give x as an integer. And now let's say for x equals 0 to lst promo dot list count. And this one, this is going to go from, if my list count has 4 items in it, the indexes have to be 0 to 3. So we're selecting 1. Or am I select?
X equals 0.
Oh, thank you. X equals. Next. Now we'll need another variable here. I'm just going to call it the list as a string. So now we're going to say if, looking at lst promo dot selected, in the position we're interested in, which is the xth position, if that is true, well, it's true or false itself. So if that's true, then we want to do something. What do we want to do? We want to say the list equals what it used to be concatenated with a comma concatenated with C. I think x plus 1, because x is going to be 0 for the first one, and we want the 0 to transfer to a 1, so x plus 1.
Do we want to put the comma before the list? Because we're concatenating onto it. Are we going to have a comma at the end?
Oh yeah, so this is going to give us one more comma than we need. The question is, do we want it at the beginning of the list? Do we want the extra comma at the beginning or at the end? If we say take the list, whatever it is, put a comma and then the next value, then when the list is a 0-length string the first time through, we're going to start with a comma. So we'll end up with a leading comma or we'll end up with a trailing comma depending on how we put those in. And the truth is, a leading comma is marginally easier to get rid of than a trailing comma. So we're going to have it lead. In fact, once we've done that, we should be able to say, we should be able to write out back to our cell. So I'm just going to say, whatever row we are in column H, dot value. Now, if we say equals the list, we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll see that it puts a leading comma on it. I'll run this, we'll see the problem. Say OK. And we should have a leading comma there. Not yet. Can you see that? Leading comma. Right there, leading comma. So, if we have something that looks like this, comma 1, comma 2, comma 3, what's the expression that's going to get rid of that leading comma?
Use the right one, and then the length minus 1.
We could use the right number of characters, how long the length minus 1. That would do the trick. But that would make it just as hard as doing a trailing comma, because that would be the left for the length minus 1. There's a little trick that we can do here. If we use mid, how would it work? Mid of the list beginning where? Yeah, starting at the second character. And then we don't care how long it is. Start the second character, take the rest. It's because of the way that mid works here, it's kind of handy why we prefer to have that comma at the beginning. We don't ever have to ask the length. We'll figure it out. What's that?
Like, that's a matter of elegance, right? Because the act of actually asking the length is true.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The question is, so what do we have to ask the length? Big deal. Well, it's less typing for me, and as you know, the less typing I do, the better off we all are. But you're right. How long does it take to figure out the length of that string? Next to nothing, because remember, the way a string is actually stored, the actual length of that string is stored in memory. You just have to read that location in memory. It takes almost no time. Is the question in the back? It doesn't like it has to count through the whole string and figure it out. It knows the length of the string. Okay. I think that does it. I think that does it for this one. Run it again. Oh, this will be interesting.
What was a zero length string?
Oh, let's see. Let's see what it does. Good question. Control-Shift-E. So this is interesting. Even though I had a leading comma, that's not a problem for writing to it. Why not? Because a zero-length string either is non-numeric or it converts to a 0. I suspect the latter. I suspect it converts to a 0. And then when we're checking, we're going to say 0 minus 1, and that's going to take us out of bounds, and so it gets ignored.
Sorry, putting the value back in. When you do the mid function, is it going to be... Oh, that's why you have your promotion. No promotion. You always have to select at least one.
Oh, you know what? We have to select at least one if I'm on multi-select, but watch this. Here's how we're going to solve our other problem. We only have a few promotions. We don't really need multi-select. So we need multi-select, but I'm going to set it to 2 instead of 3. Which will, is it on 2 already? Oh no, I'm going to set it to 1 instead of 2. So that it is the simple multi-select. Now that means I toggle each one on and off with a click. So now I can get them down to nothing. Oh, you know what? You can do it too. Ha ha ha, watch this. Yeah, I just wasn't thinking. Let's go to MultiSelect 2 again. And I think you can get rid of it by holding the Control key down and clicking. So holding the Control key down turns it back into kind of a normal, simple select. And now with the Control key down, I can unselect them all. What's that? So yeah, if we say OK now, I think it'll still be OK. There is no error, and it wipes that out, sets them back to 0. So we're ending up with a zero-length string, and we're writing out the zero-length string starting at the second character. And it turns out that when you say I've got character with 3 strings, start counting at the 4th character. I've got a string with 3 characters. You say, give me the mid of this starting at the 4th character. It goes, there's nothing out there. And it returns a zero-length string. So we don't have to treat that expressly. The function just kind of does that. Question?
So why do we set product cell row number column H equal to this?
This line here?
Yeah.
So the list is building up a comma-separated list of the indices of the promotions. So we are going through this and we're saying, oh look, that one is selected. Number X is selected. So if X is 0, I want to build onto my list a 1. So comma 1, comma 2, comma 3. But we have to actually, that's just putting into a variable. We need to write that onto the worksheet so it gets saved, and that's what we're doing here. We're saying start at the second character because our code is going to put on a leading column. And if you still have a question on that, we can spend some time after class. We're about ready to move on from this exam. So the next thing I'd like to do, and this is what students have said in the past years, this is the hardest part of the project on user forms. And so we've now done an example that's exactly analogous to that. TAs, you can thank me later for that. I should reduce the time you get paid. Maybe you'll curse me for that. I don't know. I guess you get paid whether everyone comes or not. If I do your homework. Okay. So let's look at the image. Here's what I'd like to do. I would like to, did we put an image on the user form? I think we have it. So let's take a look at this data. So we have this data here called product_images.zip. I am going to extract this. I want to just make sure that I extract this to the same location where my workbook is. So let me tell you, the easiest way to do this is not to try to hit extract all. Let me show you. I want you to watch. Don't try to do this. Just watch first. And because if you don't get this in the right place, it's going to be a nightmare. So I have, where do I even have this thing? Where do I file save as? It is, oh, it's in my documents. Okay, that's easy. So let me go ahead and open up my documents. That's supposed to be easy. Control N. There we go. So documents. Okay, so here I am in my document. And I should have here, here's the form that I'm working on, user forms W18A. Probably a good time to save it. Control S. Here's my form. 322. Come over to the right time. Let me refresh. That's not the file. It's in my documents. It's called user form W18A. We call it W18B, so I can be sure I got it. Here it is. Okay, W18B. So right here where I've got W18B, I am now looking at my product images zip. I am going to double-click the zip file. That's not extracting it. It's just opening it so I can see it. So there's a folder built into this thing. If I just try to extract it, it's probably going to make a folder inside of a folder. Don't do that. Instead, just drag this folder out of the archive and drop it right on that file, and that'll just put it at the same location. That should extract those images into a folder called pics, and they will be in the same folder as our workbook. Pictures won't be in the same folder. There will be a folder called pic that is in the same folder, and inside that pictures folder. So here's pics. I'm in my documents, the same place where my workbook is, and if I double click that, I can go in and see these are all the pictures of these products. There's the custom brass banded spec. Okay. So it's not so critical that you have them in exactly that format, but for the code example that I do to work for you, you want it relative wherever your workbook is. You want the pictures relative to that in the folder called pics in the same place as the workbook. So our goal is going to be that whenever we pull up the information on that product, we'll show the picture of that product there as well. After all, I think that, actually I really hope the information about that's there. Oh yeah, image. So there, the file name is right here. So using that file name, we should be able to look and actually see that. So we're good getting that file extracted? Let's go ahead and see what we have to do to bring that image in. So I'm going to come back to my user form. So we still got a couple folks working on the images. Anyone else need a little direction on the images? Okay, we got a control that allows us to drop an image onto the form. By itself, the control really is a static. Yeah, just if you want to put an image on this form, great, here's an image. We want the image to change. All the code's running, that'll take some VBA. So here is the image control. It's the second to the last control. I'm just going to select that image and then click and drag to put the image in. It's called image 1. I'm going to be referring to it through code, so I'm going to change the name. IMG, I'll just call it IMG prod. And then anytime we show it, we want to load that picture in. Let's go ahead and pick a picture to put in here to start with, just so we can see how to do it from design time. So at design time, you'll notice there's a picture property. I want to point out this is not a path to a picture. This is a picture. Now, the way we get the picture is we find a file. But once we find that file, VBA is going to read that file. It's going to take the bytes. It's going to take the data from that file, and it's going to bring it into the form. If you delete the file, your picture will still work in the form because you are putting the picture into the form. Not a reference to the picture, you're putting the picture in the form. So I'm here, I've got the image selected. I'm coming here to picture, I'm clicking on the little builder button. It says, great, what picture do you want? I think I've got a picture of Captain Kirk on my desktop. Desktop, do I? Maybe not.
Kirk.
Was it there?
Very top.
Oh, I was looking at a folder. There it is, Kirk. Do I want Kirk or Kirk 2? I don't know. So I guess there's some settings we can play with here. Let's see, there's something called something. Let's see, I got it selected here. You can either make it to stretch or to scale. Picture size mode. Picture size mode. Clip is just, show the picture, and if it doesn't fit, clip it off. Or we can say zoom, and that should make it fit. Or you can say stretch, and that will make it fit both ways. It will not respect the aspect ratio. It looks a little taller that way. Yeah, he always looked up to Spock. He'd probably like to be a little taller. Okay. So that's, and so in this case, if that's all we're doing, then that picture is just there. We go to a different row, the picture stays, because that's just a picture that is built into that control. We want to be able to load a different picture based on what that image is. So we've got, in here, column G, we've got the name of that image. So let's go ahead and do that in our show data as well. So let's come up to show data, and we'll put a comment here, show the picture. I seem to be late. Okay, so we have an into our object, img, almost said Kirk, prod, img prod dot picture. Here's the tricky thing. We can't just set it equal to a path. It has to be a picture. It's got to be a stream of pixels. I mean, information to say what those pixels are. Oh, fortunately, there is a statement in VBA that will take a path to a picture and return the picture itself. It is called load picture. I hope. Ah, good. Load picture. Now we just got to get the file name. Here's the trick. It's got to be the full path to the file. Well, the truth is there's probably some default that it'll look at, but don't rely on the default. We need to get the full path. So, how are we going to get that whole path? Yep.
Go to the Explorer, copy path as text.
You could go to the Explorer and copy path as text, but what's the problem with that? No problem. It works fine. I'd like to make this so that if I move this workbook and that picture folder together, wherever it goes, I want the code to still work.
Is workbook done?
Yes! I can ask the workbook where it is. This workbook. This workbook. I'm going to comment this partially line here, this partial line, so this will execute. And it tells us that's where it is. That'll be different for you because presumably you're not using G. Allen 2. If you are, something's fishy. So I'm going to say that's where I want it to go. Now, That's at least where it starts. From there, we've got another, we can put a backslash. So concatenate on, quote, and then backslash pics. And then we can plug on the name. Here's a little trick. It's going to make this line pretty long. Maybe I'll close these out too. That backslash is the file path separator. It's the path separator in Windows. If you want to write this in such a way that it is cross-platform compatible, you've got to use a different character. Good news, you can ask what the path separator is. Application.pathSeparator, it'll tell you, oh, it's a backslash. If you do that on the Mac, it'll do either a colon or a forward slash, depending on what version of the operating system you have. Probably a forward slash. So I'm going to say, instead of putting the backslash as part of the code, I'm going to concatenate in application.pathSeparator. It's going to be a long line. That gets us to the folder. Oh, another path separator. I need another slash. And now I'm going to break this on 2 lines. And now we just need we just need column G, because column G has the file name. I'm just kind of balancing this line. There we go. There we go. Load picture, this rubber path, application separator, and pics, and application path separator, and, oh, no split. So now, each time we load the data, we should be reading that picture from the page. That should be it. That should work now.
Will it save it into the workbook each time so will all these pictures end up being saved in the workbook at the end?
Good question. So in design time, we put Captain Kirk into this image control. That is going to be remembered now forever. We can delete it, but now it's there. But through at runtime, when we plop another picture in there, it'll just be there until another picture is written on top of it, or until we close. It's not bringing it into the workbook. It's bringing it into the control. It's the one control. And when I put a new one in, it's replacing the last one. But we haven't done anything to try to save that control. In fact, I'm not sure it's possible. I don't think we could save that into the form. Because that would be VBA modifying its own VBA here. And at least by default, Excel won't let you do that. It's very nervous when VBA starts writing VBA. You can let it do that, but not out of the box. That's how AI happens. That's actually how viruses happen. So that's why they don't let you do it. Unless you expressly say, I want to allow this. Good. So you've had some time to look at that. Let me go ahead and run this. And yeah, it's a little. They're small pictures. There's like 800 of them, and it's still kind of a reasonable file size. See, I wanted to Control Shift. Okay. There we go. Control Shift E. Those aren't very good. Some of those pictures are pretty good. There we go. There we go. Duck or a swan or something. Goose. We're able to see this. Oh, that's what it is. I wondered about that. That's very good. It's a floating goose shell with pontoon. Yeah, that looks like a floating goose shell. Where were we? There's the book. That really is, that's almost everything that I want to cover. Let's look at two more things, but we won't actually add them into the form. So one, well, maybe we'll add it into the form just long enough so you can see what it is. Let me go ahead and bring back my form. View, project. Okay, so here's the form. This very last, this last control is actually kind of buggy, and we don't recommend working with it. But it's the one that's supposed to let you go pick a cell and get the reference from the cell. So you click on that, you shrink down your form, and you go pick a cell and it gets the reference to it. But it's had problems. I mean, it really is kind of buggy. But here's what we can do. Right-click, additional controls. But wait, there's more. These are the controls that you can guarantee are going to be there no matter what happens in Excel. These are just built into Excel. These other ones are ones that are here depending on what's installed on the operating system. For example, there's lots of them. For example, we should be able to come down and find the Microsoft web browser. I'll say OK. I've checked that. That's going to allow me to bring that control here. I'm going to give myself a little more room. I'll bring my select my web browser. I'll draw a web browser.
How do you get to the additional controls?
Right-click the gray space. To get to the additional controls, you right-click the gray space that's not on any control. Actually, you can even right-click a control. Right-click anywhere in the controls box, and then you can say additional control. And I brought in the one that said, folks, I still want to give you a little bit of help on the project that's due on Wednesday, so I don't want to spend too long on this. But I want to give you a feeling for it, so just watch. If you really want to do it, I'll help you after class. So I'm going to look at the properties. I'm going to look at the properties for this. And let's see, is there a place to start with, or do I have to navigate? Maybe there's an address bar. There might be a method. Stand by. I'll do that in the load as well. Initialize web browser 1 dot navigate to http //byu.edu. Okay, so now we're saying when the form initializes, navigate that browser to a particular page. So you now have a browser on your form, and it's kind of small, but the links should work, and you should be able to. The links sort of work. Not a very good browser. Currently, she's working on something. Okay. But the point is that we've dealt with some pretty basic kind of controls, right? Putting data in, whatever. There are kind of crazy other sophisticated ones out there that will do amazing things. And depending on what you have installed, you might have, like if you've got Adobe Acrobat, whatever creates PDF files, there might be controls that, because you have that product, there are other controls that you could use in VBA that would do stuff with creating Acrobat files. It's that kind of stuff that also often becomes available for use in VBA. But be careful when you create a workbook that relies on that, because if it goes to some machine that doesn't have those installed on, it won't work. It'll try to create those objects and it'll be. Okay, that's it for user forms. Questions here? Yes?
So did you have to input your own photo, your own image first in order for it to grab it?
I am thrilled that you think this is my image. I have lost some hair since then. Sorry, what was the question?
Did you have to input an image in order for it to be able to grab images?
Could it start off blank and still be able to grab images? The answer is yes. It could start completely blank without a picture in it, and it will still load those pictures just fine.
Okay.
I brought Kirk in here just so you could see, I could just put this as a static picture, and it just sits there on the form. Unless I change it, it'll stay. Okay. You have a project due on Wednesday. Without question, the hardest part of that project is trying to figure out how to randomize the position of the dice. And so let me kind of talk you through that. Let me do a tiny bit of code to make sure you understand this part. So let's suppose that I had a 5x5 grid marked here. So I don't know, home. Just put something so we can see it. That big. Okay. In the example in class, this is, or in the project, this is named. It's just a named range called game. First thing I want you to realize is that you can use a named range to refer to a range. This whole range is called game. And so if I'm over here in my code, and I say, range game dot cells number 1 dot value equals a capital A, it'll put that in that location of the grid. Now, it's pretty clear if I go all the way up to 5, it's going to put it there. But what happens if I put 6? Well, 2 reasonable things. It might put it here, or it might put it here. Where do you want it to go? You really want that to go in B3. 6, and you're in luck because that's what it does. What that allows you to do is you don't have to think about this as a 2-dimensional grid. You can think about it as a 1-dimensional structure. That could simplify your code substantially. So now let's suppose that in memory you've created a couple of variables, or you've created a couple of arrays. One of them holds your dice. It's either holding all the characters for your dice in a string, or it's holding just one character. Let's suppose you, at this point in your code, you've got it down to just one character. So let's call this one dice. And you've got it's number 0 through whatever. 0. I think it will recognize that I've got that. No, I'll stop. Maybe it'll recognize that framework. I would go up to like 24. And you've got in here. Then you got some letters. A, S, F, G, A, E, C, X. You got some letters in there. Now that, I guess could work. I've got an X, so that's fine. All right. So, but the trouble is, this is in the order. This is in a fixed order. Right? This is the order that they're listed. You've probably set this array up, and you said, all right, these are all of our dice. Now you've got game that looks the same, except, right, it's not its own structure. You'd have to use the syntax to be able to get to it. But it starts at 1 instead of at 0. So here's the idea. Start off, make a loop, but start off by saying, you know what, I want to pick a random space in this array. Someone give me a random number between 0 and 17. 8. Okay, so 8, you picked an 8, here we are. So I'm going to do this. Oops, let's start this off way. I'm going to say, great, I just picked 8. I'm going to take that value, I'm going to put it right here. I picked a random one of these, and I want my frames to be there. And I put the X from the number 8 position, and I put it right here. Now, give me another random number between 0 and 17. 8. Ah, that's a problem. Because I picked 8 again, this die should be out of the game. So here's what I'm going to do. Before I pick that second random number, I'm going to say take my very last number, O, and I'm going to put it, I'm going to write right over the top of that X. That X is done. I've put that X into the game. It's out of play. I'm going to put an O in here. Okay? Now give me a number, a random number between 0 and 17.
8.
Don't say 8, say 17. 17. Wait a minute, I've just duplicated that O. That's now has twice the probability of being here. So what should my random number be? Between 0 and 16, yeah. So now, between 0 and 16, I've got all my remaining dice. I pick one and say it's 4. Great. I say this A is going to come to my next slot here. 4 goes, A goes there. I take my 16th letter I put it right over my A, and my next random number goes between 0 and
15.
15, yeah. And so that way, it's a really elegant approach because you go through this once, you pick one at random, put it into the next slot, and you push it. I didn't give you any code. I just gave you an algorithm. It's up to you to figure that out. And there's other ways to do it. You want a different way to do it? Knock yourself out. Okay, I did not mean to record that. I meant that to be the benefit of folks who are here. If you just watch that, forget it. Pay no attention to the code at the end of the video.